All right. Kieran, tell us about what today is and what's going on today. That's so interesting.
Oh, okay. The calendar says Australia Day.
What is that?
What is that? Well, it's a day commemorating the arrival of the first fleet to Australia and the subsequent
Australia.
all of this. Yeah. Yay.
I can turn it up a bit more.
Woo. Woo.
All right. Well, let's not talk about that today. That's
Sounds
a lot.
good. Sounds very good.
You want to talk about Adam Bandt?
Oh, yeah. I'd kill for some banter.
I mean, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities. Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending any time on it. But I ain't spending any time on it. But I ain't spending any time on it. Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending any time on it.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Yanni.
How are you?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's January 26th, and I don't want to talk about it too much.
Fair.
But it's your responsibility to educate yourself. Anyway, let's get into the greens.
Woo!
Hi. Okay. So, welcome to Shouldn'ta Come, the podcast about this landmass and why it is or isn't.
That's what we're going to find out.
We're going to find out. We've kind of been circling around a certain party with our introductory episodes to Australia's political landscape. We covered a couple of Labor and Liberal Party figures, then we did some history, and then we caught ourselves up on what the financialized left and the mineralized right were up to. But one party looms large over our discussions, like the canopy of forest covering Central Australia in a far-flung future, and that's the Greens.
Woo!
How would you describe the Greens?
The Greens. Okay. Left, I would say. Here's my idea of the Greens. The typical Green, and for the record, I am a Greens voter. But the typical Greens voter to me is either kind of like an inner city lefty who, very much lives kind of inner city life, but also is a bit preachy. Or they're like a salt of the earth kind of homesteader style, like they grow their own shit, they make their own clothes, they kind of do all these things. I think it's the two aspects of environmentalism, the kind of more politicized version and the kind of like lived version, in my opinion.
That's a pretty fun way of putting it. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, you meet people who they don't need to tell you that they're Greens voters, and then you meet people who just look like they work in an office because they do, but they're like Greens people.
Yeah.
I see those kinds of people. Do you think the whole Greens thing is going to work in terms of bringing, for those uninitiated, I guess broadly speaking, the goal of the Greens is increased focus on environmental policy to protect the environment.
Yeah.
Very broadly.
Yeah. Look, listen. What have they been able to really accomplish at this point? I don't really know. I'm hoping to learn some things as we have a chat. But I think the Greens are always going to be a minor party that on occasion will side itself with whoever it needs to pass certain things across. And I always had assumed that Labor and the Greens would kind of stay like a close-knit unit like they were, back in the day or whatever. But it seems like Labor really hates the Greens.
Labor has kind of, from what I've read, always hated the Greens.
Really?
I think the idea that they're close-knit is more the Greens previously have been easier to whip into shape.
Fair.
Perhaps. But look, Adam Bandt is betting on it working, and he sees a coalition of some sorts with Labor, and let's learn about the left's highest profile electoral comrade, maybe?
Hell yeah.
He comes from a part of Australia that we conveniently haven't talked about yet, so I can use new music. Welcome to South Australia.
Woo!
It's peaceful, it's a gentle city, well named for a woman. It's got that feeling.
Hi, welcome to Adelaide. I'm Adriana from the Convention Centre. How was your flight?
This is a story about the limits of working within the system to achieve change, about the belief in momentum, about the value in sticking around, and the costs of compromise. But it's also the story of a German guy from Adelaide.
Okay.
The name Bandt is German for the guy who makes the copper loops that go around barrels. And it's from Germany that we get our first Bandt to barrel over to Australia. Johann Friedrich Ludwig Bandt.
Damn, that's every German name I've ever heard.
Isn't it? He never lived in Germany, though. He's a
Oh.
Polish citizen of Prussia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's part of a big group of Prussians settling in Adelaide in the 1800s, late 1800s.
Damn, back when there was still a Prussia.
Yeah. We're not going to go into like a full episode-long tangent about this Australian minority ethnic group today, but we are going to spend a bit of time with the early German Australians.
Okay.
Because Johann's parents, both named Johann.
Oh.
So Johann's dad is named Johann, and his mom is Johann, like with an E at the end.
Okay. Yeah. Fuck it. Why not?
Yeah. Our Johann, arrives in Australia sometime after 1850 or so. He's part of the German community settling the Barossa Valley.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, this is the hub of German Australianism. They have their own dialect, Barossa German, which is pretty much just regular old German. Well, not old German, but it's the root of the South Australian word butcher, which is what those idiots call pints.
What?
Yeah, so a butcher is a South Australian term for 200-ish mil of beer. And as well as a traditional German form of indoor 9-pin bowling.
What?
Yeah. If you like to try it out, you can still visit the Tanunda Kegel Club to this day.
What?
Tanunda Kegel Club.
Why is it called a Kegel Club?
It's a traditional German form of 9-pin bowling.
With the pussy?
No, it's just also called that.
Oh, okay. Me being like, damn, Germans really bowl different. Yeah, they only do 9 pins because they couldn't get the 10th up there.
The game of Kegel originated in ancient Germany. A Kegel was originally a wooden club.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it's just called Kegeling. Back to our hero. Johann had married a lady named Charlotte in 1843 in Pomerania, one of the German-Polish border regions.
Famous for the dogs.
Famous for the dogs, famous for having a brood. He had 7 or so kids over there.
Damn.
I'm not sure what happens to Charlotte, but at some point he marries a lady named Emma Jane Pryor once he's in Australia.
Okay.
And the two of them have at least 16 kids.
What?
So there's 23 in total.
It was 23 a blessing or a curse.
But maybe more. And they disperse throughout Australia, although most of them stay in and around Adelaide, South Australia.
Jesus, did he ever get off of her?
I suppose while she was birthing.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, 23. Well, so only 16 with Emma, and a lot of them get
Only 16.
Well, it's not 23 with Emma, and a lot of them only get to 2.
Well,
I don't know how many of them really get to adulthood.
How many
I saw
actually
some
made all
charts.
the way, yeah.
Yeah, so, that's still a lot. And Johann himself ends up settling in the town of Quorn.
Corn?
Yeah.
Like the fake meat?
Like the fake meat.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. When he dies in 1905, he is Quorn's oldest resident, and he has a triple brood at this point. I figure there's 85 descendants at this, by the early 1900s.
Jesus.
Send me the charts, Adam. But he's the oldest person in Quorn. German Australians in general have a difficult time of it as the world wars its way through the 1900s.
Yeah, that's pretty fair, yeah.
During the first one, German town and street names get renamed to a smorgasbord of British, Indigenous, and occasionally ironic names. German Gardens, Townsville becomes Belgian Gardens, for instance. New South Wales had Germantown, Germans Hill, and German Creek renamed to Holbrook, Lidster, and Empire Vale, respectively.
Wow, yeah.
Tasmania's Germantown becomes Lilydale.
Aw.
Victoria's becomes Grovedale. And the town of Clemzig is renamed to commemorate a recent British victory at the Third Battle of Gaza.
Oh.
The Gaza Sports and Community Club still exists in Clemzig to this day. And they haven't, mentioned, Gaza since anything.
Damn.
Yeah. But Gaza doesn't survive here or... Well, but the Bandt survive. And some of them thrive. Louis Thornett Bandt, on a different branch of the family, invented the ute in 1930.
No, he didn't.
Or in the 1930s. Apparently, he was responding to a request for a vehicle to go to church in on a Sunday and which can carry our pigs to market on Mondays.
What?
I guess they needed to baptize the pigs before selling them. No one wants to buy a heathen ham.
Save their souls. Save their souls. Save their bacon.
Ah, He's done it. Some members of the, I have to assume, enormous family have moved to Adelaide proper. And that's where Alan and Moira Bandt are living in 1972 when they have a beautiful baby boy, Adam.
Nice.
I don't have much to say about Moira's family. She is a 10-pound pom.
Hell yeah.
She's like a teacher. I think we know that story.
Yep.
So Adam's family moved to Perth around 1982, and eventually he's attending Hollywood Senior High School.
Hollywood.
Yeah, it's long closed, but, there was just a town called Hollywood there.
That makes more sense. I forget that Hollywood is actually just like two things that are found in nature, holly and wood, and that kind of makes sense for a town name rather than being, Celebrityville.
Right, like Hollywood might have just been Lilydale or something, just depending on where it happened to be.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think we should start calling him Young Hollywood. Because
Young Hollywood.
I think he needs to embrace some parts of himself that are perhaps flashier.
Okay. I'm excited.
Is my prognostication, which doesn't mean anything. But yeah, he's at Hollywood Senior High School eventually. Both of his parents have community-focused jobs. Alan is like a social worker and Moira is a teacher. And he describes himself as like coming into consciousness already talking about politics at dinner. Reminiscing as an adult, he says, although they wouldn't have considered themselves green-oriented, they had core concerns for social justice and real lived environmentalism.
All right. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Alan his father is from a union background and first in family to go to university, so kind of classic labor type.
Yep.
And Moira's family seem to be like English hippies.
Hell yeah.
You know the type?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, he says about her, like her legacy was a practical environmentalism, the sense that we only have one Earth and we have to look after it. And also the idea of rationality and principle in politics.
All right.
Yeah, but the Greens don't like exist in the same way as they do now at the time. So Moira votes Democrat, the party that used to exist, and
Damn.
Alan is committed to Labour.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Adam is a cute kid. I'm going to send you a picture of him.
Oh, yes, please. Ooh, photo load. Aww. Look at him. Is that his first day of school?
It's early. I think he shared that on his Instagram, just talking about like public school and how important it is and such. But yeah, he's a little cutie. His hair's lighter than I realized.
Yeah, he looks like a little blondie here almost.
Yeah, he's not like recognizable as Adam Bandt, I don't think.
No, this is
It's hard to see.
This looks like a precocious child in like a I guess like a 60s, 70s slice of life Australiana thing, but he looks so sweet and innocent. He looks like a kid that would get like kidnapped or something, And they're all just like, "Where's Billy?"
Young Hollywood kidnapped.
Young Hollywood kidnapped. Has anyone seen my boy?
Well, he does. He looks young Hollywood. He's a bit Bieber-y.
Yeah, like he's like quite a cute kid. Like he looks so cute and sweet. He's got his little backpack.
It's Showtime. Adam Showtime Bandt.
God, you could not describe a kid less as Showtime.
Okay, so he's in WA, and Western Australia at the time is a hotbed for real left politics. And Adam spends the 1980s learning about the nuclear disarmament party, anti-logging movements, and for a while being a member... Archie, I know you're a big nuclear fan, but...
I love nuclear energy. It just makes sense.
That's, the podcast doesn't endorse Archie's view on nuclear energy, or disendorse. Learning about anti-logging and being a member of the Labour Party, briefly. This is certainly the story of a classic Australian political nerd, although he can be a bit fluffy about when he gets involved in what.
Okay.
In 2010, he talks about his fond memories of going to the Nuclear Disarmament Party's offices and picking up literature on disarmament and going home and reading it assiduously. That's the word he uses, big nerd.
All right.
But by 2020, he's also claiming to have attended their protests against nuclear warships docking. I don't know if he was just being coy on the radio in 2010, or if he's engaging in some myth-making in 2020, but whatever, he's certainly into politics and left politics, and green politics are a part of it.
Okay.
While Adam is looking at going to university, Bob Hawke and Paul Keating are in the process of dismantling the free university that brought a generation of Australians into city life.
Oofed.
His early involvement in campaigns are about student allowances, stopping the introduction of HECS, stopping the rise of HECS, full fee places, and everything that colored our university experience in the 2010s.
Classic, and we're still paying that debt off.
We're still paying that debt off. I guess that failed, but thanks for asking nicely, Adam.
Yep.
Around 1990, he enrolls at Perth's Murdoch University. Now, I know what you're thinking, and yes, but no. It's named for Rupert's great-uncle, Walter Murdoch.
But it is like a Murdoch
It's
family.
That Murdoch family,
Yeah.
not that Murdoch.
Damn.
Adam starts out studying maths and German, which is a red flag if anyone's doing that. But he floats around scholastically, and he eventually settles on a traditional arts law degree, and he's very involved in campus politics. According to Wikipedia, he is the highest profile alumnus of the Left Alliance, which was a feminist socialist student organization that came from communist sort of students.
Okay, yeah.
While the Labour government's gradual erosion of the state safety net angered Adam, the election of the Liberal Party's Richard Court to the Premier of Western Australia was a radicalising factor for him. From attacking student organisations to manipulating tax brackets to make things easier for the wealthy, Adam's focus was on understanding and articulating the mechanisms through which conservative political moves can be made. He publishes an article in the 1994 Murdoch University School of Law Journal titled Against Fairness, a brief critical look at concepts used to analyze a tax system. It is super polished for a student's paper, though to be fair, he's 22 when he's writing it. The crux of his argument is that equity, efficiency, and simplicity are a terrible way to run a tax system.
What's a better way to run a tax system? I know that you probably don't know, and I'm asking you a big question like, hey, how do we fix the tax system? But
Well,
I mean,
why don't you ask Adam? And by ask Adam, I mean read out a thing that Adam said.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which I'm about to send to you.
Amazing. Shit, I don't know how Adam Bandt sounds.
I'm Adam Bandt, your local MP.
Guess this time. He's German. I think you should just do a German accent.
Even the tax on capital gains reflected no, I'm not doing that. Even the tax on capital gains reflect a desire to encourage investment in more productive areas, and it doesn't apply to motor vehicles or principal residences, giving greater real benefit to wealthy people than workers. Why does the ITAA take the existence of companies for granted? Why does the dividend imputation system, being a $500 million imposition on the revenue of the country to subsidize... Wow, okay, hang on. Why does the dividend imputation system, being a $500 million imposition on the revenue of the country to subsidise incentive and investment, essentially redirect the tax burden away from the ruling class? Why do a large number of Australian companies still only pay between 1% and 10% of their declared profits as an income tax? Inequality and exploitation inherent in our class society is reflected and supported by the state.
Spoken unauthorized by Kieran Axe. Yeah, it's...
Yeah, he's like, hey,
it's nerd shit.
class shit.
It's class shit. It's like I read the paper and I liked it.
Yeah.
It's also written by a 22-year-old in 1994, so it
and God bless.
It's kind of inscrutable in ways. Like the kind of shape of it is very a 22-year-old in 94. Hard to explain, but I did read it and it's like a cool paper.
Oh hell yeah.
He's also on the internet early.
Okay.
He's writing as a representative of the Left Alliance that the parliamentary road to socialism is non-existent, but supporting the bourgeois Greens might be the only way to move towards an anti-capitalist, anti-social democratic, internationalist movement. So he is explicitly identifying himself, at this time at least, as aligned as a communist.
Yep.
He says, communists can't fetishize alternative political parties, but should always make some kind of materially based assessment about the effectiveness of any given strategy come election time.
Okay.
So, essentially, even though elections are pointless, we have to try something when that's the vehicle.
That's the opportunity that's come up. We might as well try and do something with it.
Yeah, and the thing he thinks is the Greens.
Yeah, that makes sense.
At this point in history, the Greens are certainly minnows as far as the House of Representatives go. At the then most recent 1993 election, they are outpolled by the Natural Law Transcendental Meditation Party in Victoria.
What?
The Grey Power Elderly Vote Party in South Australia.
Oh, what?
And by the Democrats in some places too.
That's bizarre. So just two fucking the old people's party and what was that transcendental
meditation. They're the Natural Law Party, but they were founded on transcendental meditation.
Okay,
techniques.
so you got the kind of woo-woo crystals.
Yes.
Old people.
Yes.
And then Democrats, a party that just doesn't exist anymore.
Yes, and then there's the
I'm
Greens.
guessing these ones also don't exist anymore, but
I don't think they do. I think the Grey Power, I think the machinery of the Grey Power Party still exists in some sense of lobbying or whatever. But
yeah, that makes sense.
that was a brief read. I was more whoa, what? Then one day. There is some representation in the Senate for the Greens, specifically Western Australia's Dee Margetts, and then in 1996, Tasmania's Bob Brown is going to join the Senate as well.
Bob Brown for the Greens.
Yeah, big name. While he's doing all of this activism, though, Adam has found time to be a big nerd.
Okay.
He wins the Ronald Wilson Prize for being the smartest fart and making people happy.
What does that mean?
It's for academic achievement and contribution to the university's culture.
Okay, yeah, so being
The smart...
a smart fart and a happy chap.
Yeah, I don't know exactly like what criteria I had to overcome to do it. I looked, ANU has like a similar award now, and it's like the person who gets like the highest grades in the MBA program or whatever. Adam moves to Melbourne to work for the Swinburne Student Union, and then he works for the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology Student Union, and then he gets hired to work for Slater and Gordon, and he takes Julia Gillard's old job.
Shut up.
Not from her, but yeah, he
Oh my
goes into...
God.
Yep.
They're all fucking connected.
I'm excited
This country is so big and yet so small.
It all comes back to Julia Gillard.
Thrilled about her episode in the future.
One day. Adam moseys along doing this for the next decade or so. He mainly represents unions, though he still does a bit of writing, and his position is a partner and solicitor, whatever that means.
Go for it. Get it, law.
In 2003, he represented the Textile, Clothing, and Footwear Union during the Outworkers scandal. It was discovered that outsourced textile manufacturers, usually recent Vietnamese or Chinese immigrants, were making about 80% of clothes labeled Made in Australia for about $2 an hour over 90-hour work weeks.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Due to a combination of restricted information, under-the-table wages, and high rates of physical assault, very few of these workers would seek compensation or engage with the textiles union.
Yeah, fair enough.
Adam went on The Law Report on the radio in September of 2003 to talk about his work with the union trying to stop the practice. I couldn't find audio. I found a transcript. He describes walking into someone's garage in Springvale and seeing a label that's being sold in Burke Street, which I imagine is expensive in Melbourne.
I think so.
Yeah, fancy place. But yeah. But between the many layers of company, including fake companies that exist to make the scheme work, prosecution is difficult and change is glacial. The union's lately been trying to go after the companies at the top of the chain.
Yeah.
So if they don't comply, Adam says, then it's impossible for anyone after them to comply, and it's quite likely that someone who performs the work is getting underpaid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If the people at the top can't be held accountable, then why the fuck would anybody else?
Yeah. We recently listened to an episode of the podcast Truanon about how the Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy mega company still does this for like made in Italy stuff. And I wonder how much of it still happens here.
Surely a fair bit. Surely, especially with people like, especially women coming from overseas who are probably like, okay, well, I got to get a job. I've worked in textiles before. I'll do that again here. And are just completely taken advantage of.
Yeah. They get their passports taken.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, cool. So now you're going to be sewing for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I'll give you $20 for the whole day.
And you'll live next to a Woolies and you'll like occasionally wave at someone and they'll be like, oh, there's this beautiful black lady who lives next to the Woolworths and she works and sews. What a beautiful black. We used to call him, Yeah. So Adam, when describing this time, says he learned, it becomes apparent that when you're operating within a system, one can do a lot, but only so much within the confines of the laws as they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Adam keeps trying.
Oh, Adam.
So to cool off from this high-stress lifestyle, he pivots to a PhD.
Okay.
He goes part-time at Slater and Gordon to start writing a behemoth of a paper about Marx and this Lithuanian guy named Evgeny Bronislavovich Pashukanis.
Evgeny
Bronislavovich? No, Bronislavovich Pashukanis. He's very influential on
YBP.
Adam. He's a Lithuanian guy.
Yeah.
And Adam's spending his off time from that reading books and papers about climate change. Remember, this is 2003-ish. Carbon emissions and just how dire the situation was when you and I were about 10.
Yeah.
And whenever he's not doing any of those three things, he's handing out how to vote cards for the Greens.
Okay.
Any chance that Adam Bandt would throw his hat in with the Labour Party was lost after the 2004 federal election.
Okay.
Yeah, that time around, Labour, well, everybody, including Labour, put the ultra-conservative family first over the Greens in their second preferences.
Oh, yep.
Though the Greens had 200,000 first preference votes to Family First's 45,000, due to the machinations of the Electoral College, preferential ballots.
Oh, because they're so different.
Yes. Steve, I reject evolution and climate change fielding gets a Senate seat in Victoria.
I'm an engineer, Tony, and I suppose that looking at both sides is pretty important, looking at the science and the facts and then analysing that and then...
Jesus.
Something funny almost happened in 2003 that might have changed the entire Adam Bandt story. A bunch of Liberal Party members, including Peter Costello, Alexander Downer, and Joe Hockey, headline a proposal for an emissions trading scheme. This is the vaunted market-based solution to the climate crisis. The government will release a capped amount of permits for pollutants, and if a company pollutes more, they either have to pay another company for their permits or face punishment. The Prime Minister at the time, John Howard, has received clear advice from the Treasury that it's the cheapest way to reduce carbon emissions, and a statement is being drafted to announce the government's support for the radical-ish proposal. And then, John Howard has a meeting with industry leaders, and they told him that his government was going to decide not to do it.
Yeah, they're like, no. Sorry, John.
That's not what we asked.
That's not what we wanted.
I don't know what you think you're getting, but
yeah.
No, it's not that. Adam's probably not going to learn about this until those documents are released in 2024, but he's got plenty to be mad about without knowing which internal Liberal Party machination did what.
Yeah.
He says it's around then that he realized that we were getting to the point of having only a few short years to turn the ship around on the climate, and this is what prompted me ultimately to decide that I was going to leave Slater and Gordon and start running in elections for the Greens. The way he puts it, working on anything but carbon emissions is a waste of time. Despite their bourgeois leanings, he figures it's worth having a go. After all, the sitting Howard government is running rampant, if you ask Adam. He writes an article in the Feminist Law Journal in 2006, warning about society falling apart due to a broader reorganization of the relationship between the state and its subjects, a problem he links broadly to anti-terror laws during the height of the war in Afghanistan. He is deep into his PhD at this time, and he's learning about, in his words, the beginning of reclassifying people as less than people so you don't have to accord them a full set of rights. I felt there was a connection between the economy and the law, and that surely Marxist scholars must have something to say about that. In 2007, he runs for the Division of Melbourne against Lindsay Tanner. At this point, no Greenie Weenie had ever been elected to the House of Representatives, and Adam is going to end up less than 1% from coming second in the election. And not breaking that streak anyway.
Damn.
Although the Liberal Party Andrea Del Ciotto snags 23.49, Adam gets 22.8% of the vote, and if you counted everybody's preferences, he is preferred to Andrea. So, he came second, kind of, if you count him. Lindsay of the Labour Party gets 49% of the first preferences, continuing to hold a seat he's held since 1993, in an area where he's obviously very popular.
Fair.
Adam is probably demoralised, but he has some hope for the Rudd government. Though Howard had belatedly announced support for some kind of emissions trading scheme, it was too late in the piece to stop Kevin O'Nien, who's promising to ratify the Kyoto Protocol. Adam is a busy bee, and he's upgraded to barrister by Slater and Gordon. I don't know what that means.
So he's still working at Slater and Gordon while also, I guess because he didn't succeed in becoming a politician.
Yeah, he goes back,
he's like, I'll come back, and they're like, would you like a promotion?
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah, something like that. He finally finishes his PhD in 2008.
Oh, hell yeah.
He titles it Work to Rule, Rethinking Pashukanis, Marx, and the Law. Pashukanis? It's about, in his words, the connection between globalization and the removal of rights. And if you can get your hands on it, I would love to read it and not understand it. People say it's way more theoretical than a typical politician's publication.
Damn, okay.
Especially in this country. Based on his comments about it in the abstract, he's basically arguing that theories derived from scholars like Marx and Hegel aren't sufficient to explain the problems of the 21st century.
Fair enough.
Yeah, this rings true to me because those dudes didn't even know about TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking idiot.
Karl Marx? Step the heck up, dudes.
Adam went on to read them in the original German, so I'm sure he has some more thoughtful arguments.
Damn. Oh, that would actually be so interesting.
Yeah, he's trying to write some kind of unifying theory. He describes it this way. There was a question that had been nagging in the back of my mind since I finished my undergraduate degree. The connection in the era of globalization between the slow eroding of the rule of law and the suspension of basic rights. At the time, the effects of the Howard government's trade laws and the United States torture program at Guantanamo Bay were spooking all manner of Australian leftists, and Adam is one of them. I'm going to quote Margaret Simon's The Monthly article, Adam Bandt, the Personable Hardliner. Marxist scholars had argued that the law was best understood as arising from a commodity-based society, as protecting the interests of capital, and Bandt argued that they were largely wrong. I felt the Marxist scholars didn't have the complete picture. His thinking brought him back to industrial relations law. He argued that the law was best understood as a means by which the state exercised power over labor. Now, I'm very, intentionally very stupid about theory. But I figure labor is used to generate the capital, and the scaraks of the capital are used to tempt the labor. It's a real which came first situation, the chicken or the stick. I would read his thesis to critique it, but it's not available to the public, and in fact was embargoed for 3 years. He says he wanted to turn it into a book.
Oh, well, come on, man. Let the people know.
Let the people know. But look, his PhD hasn't sated his itch to keep writing and keep ringing the alarm about climate change. In 2009, he publishes an article in the Australian Feminist Journal called Had We But Whirled Enough in Time, Reconsidering Emergency. He's described as a Melbourne barrister and active within the Greens, and he bemoans the bureaucracy that halts climate change discussion, compared to the swift, decisive action taken for financial emergencies.
Well, of course.
His head is obviously fully in the political game at this point. He feels there's a lack of imagination and direction among the left, and the energies of emergency and exploration, he brings up the moon landing, are needed to create a better world. He draws from utopian science fiction, a typepad blog post, and a bunch of European names I hear podcasters mention. This paragraph sounds very revolutionary politician.
How can we dream again? A plan for the future that breaks the shackles of the very system which has forced individualism and despair upon us offers the best start. And here is the importance of a destination. The question then becomes how to organise the immense creative labour of humanity in pursuit of a common goal. In other words, the plan is not the alternative to the dream, it is part of it.
He's speaking. He's spitting.
It's a circle of Bandt.
Yeah, he's basically trying to, wed people's real life issues, what people want from the world, to the day-to-day actions being taken. He's like, we can't push things away forever.
Yeah, you keep kicking the can down the road, you'll have a sore foot eventually.
And he says, look at the things that, when it happens, we deal with immediately.
Yeah.
Certain financial things.
Military
things.
Yeah, the idea of trying to communicate the danger of something that people can't actively see or feel, in a matter of moments, like a food shortage, you can feel that pretty quickly. A bank has, lost a bunch of money. That'll be felt pretty quickly.
But why?
A natural disaster, that's felt pretty quickly.
But, that makes sense.
Yeah.
A natural disaster makes sense. Why, a bank losing money, should that be felt by the people around?
No.
If the commodities all still exist.
It shouldn't be, but I imagine...
That's leftism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And here we are.
But absolutely, stuff that looks bad for the government, the things that people look at as pillars of stability when they are touched. The ecological crisis is one that's taking longer.
Yeah, well, it's a sign of weakness as well, I think.
Yeah, it is. And while he's writing this article about the urgency of immediate climate action, Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull spend the year debating the Carbon Pollution Reduction Scheme, Australia's new emissions trading scheme.
Yay.
Turnbull says he wants a scheme like it, but they tussle about when and how to implement it, and businesses obviously get a big say, and exceptions are carved out for certain industries, including agriculture and land clearing. But this is the period of Turnbull, the business whisperer. Somewhere between delaying the start, lowering the target, and $5 million in compensation for the polluting industries, the Greens were not going to get behind the bill.
Yeah, fair enough. If you're going to water it down so much, that it's fucking pointless.
Exactly, but it looks like it's going to pass in Parliament with bipartisan support.
Well, yeah, because everybody's like, oh, well, this isn't so bad, is it, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Looks like it's just the same thing as usual, just an extra bit of paperwork.
Yeah, it's despite loud criticism from the eggheads that it's essentially useless, so that's Greenpeace, the WWF, the Wilderness Society.
Anybody who knows.
And by some dummies that it will make business more costly or whatever. That's like the Australian Industry Group, some of the groups we talked about last week. But by November of 2009, it looks like it's going to get done.
Yay.
Then Big Tony sees the big banana.
Ah, Big Tone.
The sad thing about the scuttling of even this minimal action to disrupt climate change is that Tony Abbott doesn't even particularly seem to not believe in it, at least not at this point.
Does he just not give a shit?
He'd supported the emissions trading scheme in public leading up to the bill, but the bitter anger amongst the Liberal Party over daring to negotiate with Labour was enough to generate the rancor and discontent for a leadership spill against Malcolm.
For fuck's sake.
On the 1st of December, Tony becomes the big monkey in the Liberal Party, and the climate change emergency remains on the alarmingly widespread back burner.
Yep.
as the Liberal Party withdraws their support, killing the bill.
Jesus fucking Christ. I'm just going to adjust this quickly. These fucking politicians, man, like they just poo-poo each other constantly for no fucking reason.
Constantly.
Just wah, 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 I don't like it. Even though, like, 2 weeks earlier, they're like, well, I like it a lot. And then somebody else goes, me too. And they're like, oh, I hate it now because you suck. It's two siblings just fighting.
Labour hasn't stopped complaining about this till this day. Julesy takes Kevin's job during the 2010 Labour leadership spills.
In the meantime, take your best shot.
A big part of that is like, Kevin, you failed to get any climate change things done.
God.
And she calls a federal election for August. This election, like every single election before or after it, is going to have an increased focus on climate compared to the previous one. The Labour Party began attacking the Greens publicly for not supporting their previous climate bill, but Adam wasn't in Parliament when that happened, so he presents voters with a fairly clean slate. Lindsay Tanner is retiring, so rather than going up against a Labour heavyweight veteran, he's going up against some lady named Kath Bowtell, who isn't going to conjure enough interest to merit a Wikipedia page.
Oh, poor Kath.
Labour loses the seat of Melbourne to Adam Bandt, who gets 35% of the primary vote and 56% in the two-party preferred vote.
Damn, okay.
Every other party's preferences flow towards Adam, including 3/4 of Liberal Party voters.
Oh, shit. I guess they're also at the point where they're just like anybody but Labour.
Yeah. Adam becomes the first Green Party member in Australia's House of Representatives, and although he's the only one, he comes in wielding tremendous electoral power. Richard Di Natale is also elected to the Senate at this election, but that's an important and relevant aside. The major parties both get 72 seats, so that means whoever the crossbench mainly sides with is going to get power.
Yeah.
The Greens, along with 3 independents, plan to form a loose coalition with the Labour Party. But in discussions, they get in on the madness of the 2010s with a deputy leadership spill.
Oh, what a complete shambles.
Ah.
Even the Greens.
Guys, just stop. Like, you know what? I guess if I was able to have a leadership spill in my workplace, I'd probably do the same thing. I'd be like, this boss sucks.
That's a really good
Fucking
point.
get rid of him.
Actually,
but it's like, come on now. I don't have the right to do that, so why are you?
Yeah. Well, maybe we're learning the wrong thing from leadership spills. Maybe we need to be learning, like, hey, leadership spills should be institutionalized.
Hey, we
in
should
every
all do
workplace.
leadership spills. Yeah. This guy's actually a shithead. I vote him out.
Australia.
We're just doing like
the mutiny country.
Yeah, mutiny. Pirate style.
I'm a pirate! Pirate!
So the Greens are asking for some major concessions. So a ministry, action on legalizing gay marriage, and a climate tax in exchange for their support. They're going to do a confidence and supply, which is the kind of coalition where certain things can be taken back and certain things aren't necessary that you would when you have an actual coalition like the Liberal National Coalition.
Yep.
Confidence and supply is what currently Trudeau's government in Canada has with Jagmeet Singh's National Democratic Party.
Okay, where it's kind of you scratch my back, I scratch yours,
It's a bit
and
more
we
of
can
that
kind of
than like a coalition
make an agreement
where it's
based
one
on that.
party.
Yeah,
exactly. So Labour is playing hardball in their negotiations. And Senator Sarah Hanson-Young does not want to be fucked by some Tories today.
Fair.
She thinks, rightly or not, that the Greens could put pressure on Labour by negotiating with the Liberal Party. The concessions that Labour is willing to grant by her money are insufficient, and the sniping is starting to leak out. At some point, Sarah's walking past some journalists, and I think this may be a couple years later, but I think the quote's pretty demonstrative. She lets slip that she feels the Greens are marching to a slow death under Christine Milne. And yeah, she challenges for the deputy leadership, which is Christine's position.
Yeah.
The Green spills are entirely behind closed doors, and Christine stays on. The deal with Labour is done. There's no ministry, there's no gay marriage, no climate tax, but they do get a climate change committee.
A committee.
A parliamentary budget committee.
A committee. Oh, you shouldn't have. I always wanted a committee.
A parliamentary integrity commissioner.
Oh, yay, a commissioner. Oh, I'm so excited. This will definitely help.
A referendum on recognising Indigenous Australians. How'd that go?
Fuck off.
A parliamentary debate on Afghanistan.
How'd that go?
Restrictions on political donations. Legislation on truth in political advertising.
Okay, well, I don't think that's helped at all.
But in perhaps one of the greatest concessions granted in Australian politics, the Greens, Adam and their leader, Senator Bob Brown, get an hour of Julia Gillard's time every sitting week. These are the kingmakers of Australian politics.
Jesus Christ.
The image of the agreement being signed is described as a sitcom marriage photo with the happily family members looking on from either side to make sure the dotted line gets undotted. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wow, this is actually really, really good. Okay, so I don't know the names of everybody here,
I'll
but
tell you.
obviously at the front we have Julia Gillard.
Do you remember that blonde streak? Is that a blonde streak in her hair?
I think it is, and I do remember vaguely
I don't
that she
remember
had
her
some
having a
highlights
streak.
at one point.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's Julesy.
You know, back when highlights were chunky and in.
Yeah.
Okay, so firstly of all, who's the guy on the far left?
So
next
that's
to
Wayne
Julia?
Swan. He's
Yeah.
looking like he wants to fuck Bob Brown in the ear.
Yeah, no, he's looking like he's pulled a fast one, but he's
Yeah.
trying to make sure that the deal actually gets done. So
And-
he's watching. He's got a little smile on his face, but he is eagle-eyed.
And he has
looking.
pulled a fast one. So Wayne Swan, for the listeners, there's a gentleman in the background of the photo who is very, very smug, and that is the Labour Party treasurer.
Yeah,
The-
he's happy as fuck.
Everyone else in the photo is a Greens member, and Adam Bandt is the one standing in the back with the rest of the Greens at the very far right.
Yeah, I can see. I can also see there's two ladies at the back. They look just kind of like they're like, oh well, I guess this is happening.
Yeah, well, so
and then
so next to Adam Bandt is Sarah Hanson-Young.
I was about to get
who-
to her. She looks like she's got a smile on her face, but she's pissed. She's fuming inside.
Well, because she's standing
like,
next
"Fuck this."
to Christine Milne, who she
Oh.
just challenged for the deputy leadership.
This explains the uncomfortable energy. And Adam Bandt has got his eyes shut for this photo, so
Well,
that's kind of funny.
You might notice so does Christine Milne and Rachel Seward. Three
I-
of the Greens have their eyes shut.
They're all like, nope. The only two people's eyes we can see in this photo, and I find this really interesting, like just from a photography perspective, is you can see Wayne Swan's eyes, and he's kind of like looking off to, I guess, the right, having a look at the paperwork being signed. And then you've got Sarah Hanson-Young, who's looking off to the left, probably at discomfort at the fact that she is standing next to the person that she tried to challenge and failed.
Yeah, challenging them over their agreement to sign the thing that's being signed,
You know-
which she didn't want to sign.
This is really, really tasty. I like that quite a lot.
It's an unhappy family. But Adam looks like he's considering something important, because he might be thinking about a personal concession he's got, one that might prove politically fruitful.
Ooh.
His partner, Claudia Perkins, has quit her job to move to Flemington with Adam.
Okay.
Guess what her job was?
What?
Advisor to Julia Gillard.
Oh, shut up.
Yep, our premier tabloid, The Australian, revealed this to the public under the scandalous headline of Bandt slept with the enemy in campaign.
That's crazy.
The Australian that year also gives us an early delete your old post story when they dig up the Greens aren't Marxist enough blog post he made in 1995.
That's amazing. Some journalist, some like young journalist is just trawling through shit and they're like, fucking got him. Fucking got him. Fucking got him.
He's done. Got it! It's a part of a series of gross hit pieces they write about the Greens and Adam Bandt that year. Bob Brown's weird ass comes out to defend Adam. He says, Adam still has my 160% support. I am quite intrigued in a happy sort of way with the origins of thought of all of our Greens. We're a very eclectic lot.
Yeah, anybody who says that has to be part of an eclectic lot. 160%.
What the
That's
fuck?
a bizarre.
That's
a,
so
That's a
strange.
bizarre number. And then what did he say about? He said, "I find him."
I'm quite intrigued.
I'm quite
in
intrigued.
a happy sort of way with
In a
the origins
happy sort
of
of way.
thought of all of our Greens. Intrigued in a happy sort of way. 160%. Just a weirdo.
Come on,
and
freak.
That's with like all love to Bob Brown. What a weirdo.
Yeah.
What a weirdo. Now, look, if you think I'm being uncharitable by describing these as hit pieces, and if you think The Australian was just reporting the news impartially, here is what they have to say about the accusations at the time.
Okay.
Greens leader Bob Brown has accused The Australian of trying to wreck the alliance between the Greens and Labour. We wear Senator Brown's criticism with pride. We believe he and his Green colleagues are hypocrites, that they are bad for the nation and that they should be destroyed at the ballot box.
Fuck.
So if you still think The Australian is a trustworthy news source, well, about half the country agrees with you, according to the University of Canberra's digital news report, so you're probably right, I guess. Damn. What do I know about accuracy and reporting? I'm just a bad bitch.
Hell yeah. Every time I try to access one of their articles, it's locked behind a paywall, and you can actually get fucked if you think I'm going to pay for something.
There's ways, though, with The Australian. I'll show
There's
you.
ways, absolutely, but I don't. It's.
I mean,
not,
no, there isn't. You have
There's
to
no
pay for
ways.
it. We pay for it.
We pay for it. We pay for it. But like, you know what kind of surprises me is how many people must think that it's a reliable source and also like pay to get access to it, that's silly.
Because they'll let an article out public if it's something that has propaganda value, I feel.
You know?
Like if there's a narrative they're trying to push.
Yeah,
they'll
absolutely.
make sure people read it. But no one who can read is paying for this. Anyway, Adam's finding his feet in his first year of politics. He holds the Greens portfolios for climate and energy, banking, emergency services, employment and workplace relations, high-speed rail, House of Representatives reform, innovation in industry, and science and research.
Holy fuck.
Because there's only like 5 Greens or whatever.
I guess that makes complete sense, but like...
So they all have like 9 things to do.
Motherfucker's wearing like 20 hats.
Yeah, he's...
Take off some hats, Adam.
He's, needless to say, he's probably spending most of his time in like books and meetings rather than practicing his oration.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's not that he's a bad speaker or anything. He's just kind of quiet and reserved and constantly has an eyebrow raised. The novelty of a Greens Party member in the House of Representatives kind of carries the discourse in his first year.
Fair, that makes sense. Also, you'd expect he'd be better at speaking. He's been a lawyer.
Well, he goes on Late Line to toe the public line between professional, relatable, and not sounding too anti-coal.
Okay.
That means an entire phase out of the coal industry, doesn't it?
Well, we heard one of the climate commissioners today saying that he thought that coal had a 30-year future. And that I think implicit in that and implicit in what the Climate Commission is saying is that we should be using the wealth and the advantages that we have now to put that money in the bank, perhaps in the form of a sovereign wealth fund, so that we can make that transition to a clean energy economy.
Look at that eyebrow up, though.
It's so raised.
He's doing a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson impression.
He doesn't look like that anymore, I don't think.
I have to keep watching. Hang on.
So that we can save our tourism sector, for example. Let's look at the Great Barrier Reef, where there's 63,000 people's livelihood dependent on that, more than the number of people employed in the coal mining industry. And the climate commissioners are making the point that up until the 1970s, that reef had never bleached, and now it's bleached 9 times since the 1970s. So what does it look like? Well, it looks like an economy with a healthy tourist sector, a healthy services sector.
It sounds kind of reasonable to me.
Yeah, that's how I call it.
Sounds kind of like he's getting questions that I might say are a little bit aggressive, which, you know, that's the role of a interviewer or a journalist, is to kind of push politicians on things. So I'm not mad about that.
I mean, I'd question maybe
the motives behind that. I'm a little
the
more...
faith of it, but yeah, I mean, I would say being pressed, but
yeah,
civilly.
Yeah,
everything's civil. But he's like his answers are very wide ranging.
Yeah,
a lot of examples.
Yeah, absolutely. He doesn't seem like thrown off, or you know, he doesn't seem like he's trying to do that politician thing of being like, oh Linda, why do you always give me the hard questions?
Yeah, no, he's not trying to
he's just kind of like
himself with her.
Yeah, you know, he's just like, she asks a question and he's like, yeah, okay, so here's the answer that I have. And
he's responding in great detail.
Yeah,
and I imagine no one gave a shit. This is
he was a little boring as well, though. Like the charisma wasn't quite there, I don't think.
No, it's his first year. And he's the minister for 10 different things, and he sounds like it.
Yeah.
Like, listening to him, especially
he's
as
across everything. He has to be.
If you're plugged into politics, you're going to listen to him and be like, oh, that's somebody who is considering all the things that I have been led to believe are things worth considering.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's also, like, it's precision. It sounds very, like, Green New Deal, Future Made in Australia, before those were the terms people used.
Absolutely.
Like, it's 2011, after all, and the whole world still believes a little in Obama and public-private partnerships, the role of the market despite everything.
Yep.
At the end of the year, though, the embargo on Adam Bandt's PhD thesis is lifted.
Oh.
And Dr. Adam Bandt's loud, stupid life is going to begin.
Yes, doctor.
The Herald Sun publicly accused Adam Bandt of hiding his thesis for political reasons. It's an infuriating read now, but in 2011-era public discourse in this country, Marxist was still synonymous with Nazi. Actually, is that just still true? Tune into the second Trump administration to find out. They slide their viewpoint across the table when they describe the words that Adam Bandt wrote.
It includes chapters on the Führer of the factory, exploring labor law in the Third Reich, and examining theories of the divine violence of the general strike. Spooky.
Adam downplays the importance of the thesis and how scary it is, and the decision to embargo it during his campaign. I had hoped to publish my thesis as a book, and I still do, so on advice I ticked the box on the form that allows the work to remain confidential while discussions about publishing take place. Now, if he's telling the truth, absolutely. I'm sure he did. He wanted to publish a book.
Yeah.
But he's also absolutely lying if he says it had nothing to do with not wanting to be portrayed too loudly as a crazy Melbourne Marxist.
Yeah, that too.
This is the nation state we reside in, after all. The bottom of the Herald Sun article is a series of the most spookiest quotes of the thesis, right on top of a gigantic picture of Karl Marx. It's
just a subtle kind of,
like, as
very
wide as the
tasteful.
article. It's huge. It just says Karl Marx. So Adam, Christine, Bob, Sarah, and the rest of the Greens hold more power than the Greens may have ever dreamed of. There's kind of a Marxist in the House of Representatives. There's a bunch of senators, Richard Di Natale, Bob Brown, Christine Milne. You're going to see the rise of
socialism, baby.
And that's where we're going to pick up next week, in the strange new world of the Greens being in politics. Adam's, made it. He's been in for a few years. He's already seen what happens when you try to get concessions from the Labour Party. Like, he's frustrated about it. He describes being frustrated about it. What do you think? Who is he so far?
Who is Adam Bandt? So far, I like him. I feel like this happens with most of the part ones, or looking at the youth and come up of a lot of politicians, is I'm kind of like, I can kind of see where you're coming from. Whether I agree or not, I'm like, I get this person. I've seen this character before. That makes sense. I think it's interesting that he went on to be a lawyer. That's the one thing that I'm kind of struggling to...
But he was a lawyer, but he pretty much just represented unions. So like an industrial lawyer.
I guess that makes sense.
So his
maybe it's just me thinking that lawyer is a skeevy career,
regardless
of whether you're doing it, positively or not.
I don't think that's unfair. I guess it doesn't sound like. I mean, I don't know what a solicitor or a barrister is, but I guess from the textiles thing. So he's trying to represent workers who are being exploited by companies explicitly. That's his whole job as a lawyer.
And that I guess does make more sense and does kind of fall into things a lot more. I think
he's not working on behalf of a company.
I'm a little not quite confused, but I'm still kind of trying to puzzle out the pieces of Adam Bandt.
It's not a very Australian political story.
No, and it's hard to put into words because I can kind of see where it's coming from, active in university politics, very interested in leftist theory, theory. A lot of the guys that we've talked about who have been left-wing in previous episodes don't seem to have been very much into the theory of it.
Not they all talk about reading very broadly, and Gramsci's a name that all the Australian political figures on anywhere from the centre left to further out bring up. I don't know who Gramsci is. They all say Gramsci.
Hashtag Gramsci.
But none of them have this big thesis or this body of work writing academically about dense political issues.
And I suppose that's the thing as well. Adam Bandt does fall into the category of inner city socialist that I mentioned at the start of the episode, talking about his parents seem like the people who were, by the land, functional environmentalism, whereas he, having gone on to live in Melbourne, let's be honest, it's Melbourne, that's where all of the socialists go.
Yeah, that's the moment he leaves Perth, goes to Melbourne.
It's the haven for,
Where else would you go, I guess?
Where else are you going to go? You're not going to go to Sydney.
He's got this law degree. He's clearly scholastically, academically, got it covered.
Yeah.
I feel like he's the least goofy. I would call him out of the people we've covered, he's the most serious political figure, I would say, in a more non-Australian tradition of politics being serious.
Yeah. This to me almost feels like an ancient Greek political figure. This is kind of somebody who has dedicated their life to the study of politics and then, blah, 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 blah.
You have that around the world every once in a while. You have these academic figures that go into politics. It's not as common as now, obviously, media figures or industry titans and such. But I think Manmohan Singh in India was I think he was Dr. Manmohan Singh in economics. He was prime minister there for a while. You have these professor types. You have, I think, Yanis Varoufakis is very much a professor type who was influential in Greek politics when they briefly had like a left-wing government, and
Yeah.
like people on the left still talk about him and stuff. Like you have that around the world, but in Australia, like who do we have that's coming from like I am studying politics and the world, and now I want to do politics in the world. Like you have a couple
Education is just not valued here. That's
education,
the thing.
but you have someone with degrees. Like Albanese has like a
Yeah.
bachelor of education, or I mean, not
And
of
that's-
economics or whatever.
And that's fine, but like, I mean, perhaps it's just academia.
Just hitting
more
the
or
books
less.
and like really forming a cohesive ideology. If they're doing it, they're not saying it.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. That's not something that like Australians, and like for better or worse, and it's mostly worse. I think there's occasions where there is better. Like Australians are slightly more credulous, whichever one means you're less likely to believe things when they're couched with academic language than an American, I'd say. And I think that's
Yeah.
probably good, but the rest of the outcomes of it are really bad.
I think there is a
like, how dare you read a book?
yeah, there's a strong distrust of any sort of form of authority, I feel, in
Yeah.
this country, and that is for a whole host of different reasons that we would
Exactly.
never be able to fully unpick.
Yeah.
But that does mean that, government can't really trust him.
Yeah.
Police can't really trust him.
Yeah.
Academics can't really
really-
trust him because that's a school system. That's
Exactly,
an
that's
institution.
authority,
You
yeah.
know?
And yeah, so being himself, like I think he doesn't come off as oh, listen, if you just read your fucking Gramsci, you'd know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to explain further. Like he is speaking in like he's still kind of figuring it out by the
Yeah.
time we see so far, but he's speaking, to local problems in local ways, and he's trying to have a focus of how this affects people locally.
Yeah.
And writing big, dense works, 300-page works about dense theory, trying to differentiate between the like root of exploitation in society. Scott Morrison made Where the Bloody Hell Are Ya? Peter Dutton owned a bunch of childcare centers. Anthony Albanese loves the fucking Rabbiters. John Howard can't bowl a cricket ball. And Peter Costello was buying fish in front of my dad once wearing a fucking singlet while he was the chief minister. And that's why we shouldn't have fucking come. We'll be back next week with more about Adam Bandt once he enters politics.
Amazing. Can't wait.
Bye.
Bye.